Hello, this is gonna be my first build video, and I'm using Hammer of the Gods with Stampede, which is like the most common way to play warrior right now. But I've made a lot of changes, and I think this version is possibly the best right now. And I'm gonna describe what I was using before and what I've switched into. And hopefully I will keep this less than 10 minutes long. I will try my best. So before we were using bleed, so we were going down here and using these nodes and so on. We were running bleed with the Hammer of the Gods for the massive DPS. But I was checking out the fire and ignite stuff, and I saw a lot more potential for more damage scaling. So I was thinking about it, and then I saw a streamer called One Mana Left. He made he had this build basically with fire and ignite. So he had already made it. So I took some ideas from him and made my own build, but I changed some stuff from his build, and I'm gonna describe what it was. But firstly, I just want to say this build is insanely tanky. It has insane single target DPS and pretty good clear. I mean, it has very good clear, but it's just warrior is just gonna be slower than the other classes, obviously. But you are very tanky. You have really good single target. So I just want to show you my stats first. I have 78% block, which is really good because 75% is the cap. I have 87% fire res, 76 cold, 76 lightning, and max chaos res. But 78% block, like how do I have this much when 75% is the cap? Well, I have this corruption on the shield, maximum block chance. But I mean, this is obviously a really good shield. You're probably not gonna have this corruption. But even if you have 75, that's still good enough. But why? The reason why a high block chance is really good with this build is because we come up here and we take this node, offensive stance, 1% increased damage per 1% chance to block. So this is 78% increased damage from one node, which is insane, right? And on the way here, we also get a jewel. And jewels in Path of Exile 2 are really strong. And they are really worth going for. So I talked a bit before about the damage scaling compared to bleeding, and there's two things that make the damage scaling way better for ignite. And the first one is for bosses, you can use flammability, which is like a minus 20% fire res curse. And then also on the jewels, you can have this mod. Damage penetrates fire resistance. So I have like 40% fire resistance penetration. So yeah, obviously that's a lot of DPS. And if you're using jewels, you should always try to have this mod. But I talked before about there was a guy who One Mana Left on Twitch. You can check him out. But his version of this build was more tanky than mine. And I changed it to be more have more attack speed and a bit more damage. So what did he have that I don't have? He had these nodes, which is basically 2 max fire res and then 1 max all res. And then he also had these armor nodes here. These 4 and then these 2. Now armor is pretty weak right now in PoE 2. So I decided to drop those because I wanted the build to be a bit faster in mapping. So I dropped these and it's still very, very tanky. So I don't really think it's necessary anyway. So what I did was I came down here and his build went to this jewel and then it stopped. But I decided to continue to go over here to grab all these attack speed nodes. 10% attack speed, 4, 4. So this is 18%. So this is a lot. And it really, really helps with the clear speed. And on the way, you obviously get a jewel. And then I picked some AoE on the way. So yeah, that's what I changed basically. Because I felt like that I'm still tanky enough with this that I could do this, you know. So that's just what I prefer. And obviously, I have, you see the red lines here. It means on this weapon swap, I have, this is for mapping. The red is for mapping. So red here, red here, red here. And the green is for bossing. So I swap weapons for the boss to have these nodes instead, to do more single target damage. Whereas the mapping nodes, I mean the mapping swap is like more block chance and more utility, more faster, you know, because I also have these skill speed nodes for mapping. But another thing that gives this build a lot of damage is this one that I have for mapping. But this break 50% armor on heavy stunning an enemy. This is huge because I have this node on the Titan tree. Your hits are crushing blows. Now basically what this means, or what this is that, you know, obviously you can stun enemies when you have this meter, you know, and when they get full they get heavy stunned, right? But when you have crushing blows, this heavy stun threshold gets lower. So it's like a culling strike, but even more effective. So basically white mobs, I think they have 40%. So when 40% of the stun bar gets full, they get heavy stunned. And blue mobs are 60, rare mobs are 80, and unique mobs are 90. But they get heavy stunned really easily, basically, which means you're always breaking their armor, and so when you break their armor, you do way more damage. But not only that, you also have this node, 20% more damage against heavy stun enemies. That's a lot of damage. Like, if it says more instead of increased, that's a huge difference. If it says more damage, it's way, way, way more than if it says increased damage. Because increased damage only says increased damage from your flat damage, whereas more damage takes like every damage source into account to multiply it by 20%. So it's a lot of damage. Okay, lastly, I just want to show you the gems and gear real quick. Armor explosion. This is Stampede. This is the main clearing skill. Yeah, when you break the monster's armor, it creates an explosion or triggers an explosion. Martial tempo, more attack speed. Momentum, 40% more damage if you glide more than 2 meters, which you always do because 2 meters is very, very short, shorter than you think. And then you have some AoE, and then extra fire damage, just damage. And then for Hammer of the Gods, Fist of War, more elemental damage, ignite stuff, and then close combat. This is really a big one, because this is a really good way to scale the damage with the Hammer of the Gods, is this sort of mechanic, close combat. So if I stand next to the enemy when I drop the hammer, I do 25% more attack damage. So I have this, and I also have these nodes. Close range. So it's just, if you drop the hammer and you stand next to them, the bosses, you do way more damage. And then just some auras, and show you my gear real quick. Just a weapon, plus 4 melee all skills. It's preferable over just raw DPS. I had a higher DPS weapon before without the melee skills mod, but the melee skills mod is really good for scaling damage. It's just that the skills are gonna cost more mana, obviously, so try to get that if you can. Yeah, you just pause the video if you want to check the items. I'm running some MF. I have like 150% rarity because it's really good right now, so I might change that later. I just want to say one thing about this amulet. This amulet is insane. It has 56 strength because we're using Giant's Blood, so you need a lot of strength. So this amulet solves a lot of the problems. I get 56 strength from this. And it has some spirit and life, rest, whatever. But if you don't have a good amulet like this, you should use... I forgot the name right now, but it's the Breach amulet. It's a unique amulet that has a fire exposure debuff aura. So that's a ton of extra damage. So if you don't have a really good amulet, you should use that one. And then rings, attributes, generic belt, you know, just I have strength on every gear and life, basically. That's what you need, and some res, obviously. I'm using Headhunter for maps. This is really strong. I don't think a lot of people are using Headhunter on warriors right now, but it is really strong because the rares have like a lot of speed auras and speed mods, which makes you way faster. So it kind of solves the warrior problem, but it's really good, especially in Breach. The Headhunter is insanely strong. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys. It was a bit more than 10 minutes, but thanks for watching. And I just want to say lastly, I mean, warrior is obviously the weakest class. I feel like this build makes, I mean, I really like this build because I'm really tanky. I have really good single target, but it is, the other classes are stronger. They are, but if you have really good gear and a build like this, I feel like warrior isn't that bad. And probably GGG is gonna buff warriors. They're probably gonna buff armor and nerf the others. So probably all of these things will be even better in like 1 to 2 weeks. I don't know, but we will see. Anyways, see you in another video.